Welcome to the BrightInsight Digital Health C-Suite series. I'm Chitra Nawbatt. Joining us today is Emmanuel Frenehard of Sanofi. Emmanuel, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about Sanofi and your top 3 priorities.
As a company, we have a very noble purpose, which is to chase the miracles of science to improve people's lives. So in our industry, the life science industry, our goal is to find new molecules, new treatments to help patients with current diseases or new diseases that are being discovered. And that's really difficult because it's science, and science is not, unfortunately, as precise as we would like it to be. So it's a hit and miss in that respect. The second thing I think as a priority for us is, once you have found this molecule, how do you get into the hands of patients? How do you educate patients that treatments are potentially available to them? How do you make sure that healthcare professionals are on board with it? And you connect the two. So I like to think about the idea of shortening the distance between the patient and the treatment. And I would say the third priority for us as a company is our culture. We have this play to win culture, which brings one Sanofi together, which is difficult in large companies where you have different divisions, where you have different business units, different functions, and truly we're trying to embrace this company culture of one company behind the patient purpose, where from R&D all the way to manufacturing, to distribution, to digital, to HR, you name it, finance, everybody comes together. In a culture which is a culture of thoughtful risk-taking. As a company, we aim to be first in class, best in class in our medicine. We're not so much of a me too company. And when you want to be best in class, first in class, it means taking risks. It means going into areas where nobody has gone yet. It means a science that is unproven. It means a lot of uncertainty. And so that's the kind of company that we want to be. So I would say the third one is the culture.
And so before we get into some of the areas where others aren't exploring, from a patient and consumer perspective, how can they recognize Sanofi in terms of your drug therapies, areas in which that they might be using your solutions?
So I want to say it's maybe less about Sanofi and more about the treatment itself that is purposeful for them. If we take one of our treatments, one of our blockbuster treatments, Dupixent, which is one that we're partnering with BrightInsight on, we want them to recognize Dupixent as the right treatment for them. The fact that Sanofi is behind it, it's almost secondary at this stage. Really is that this drug has a potential to improve their quality of life significantly, if applicable, and that's really what we want them to remember is Dupixent. Much like, you probably don't know GM that much, but their cars by brand. It's a little bit similar to us. What's important is that the brand of the product means something to you in terms of your health benefit, and the company is the umbrella of everything, and the company keeps it together by this really beautiful purpose, which I like. There is a mix of science and a little bit of imagination and almost creativity into it when you have the miracles of science, because it's almost sometimes contradictory, the miracles of science.
So talk a little bit about your current areas of focus and using that thoughtful risk-taking, some of the horizons that you're exploring.
Our industry is probably one of the laggards in terms of digital adoption, digital transformation. This is true because of our industry is highly regulated, but also the model has worked very well. So one of the areas for us is truly how do we transform the company digitally? And when you think about thoughtful risk-taking, it means how do you start to change research from the R&D? Because the engine of the company truly is research. Is when you find those new molecules that can help people, you find those new targets as well. And so thoughtful risk-taking means how do you approach it now? From a traditional, I would say, research perspective to now a very digital research perspective, where digital is here to support it and potentially digital is here to even propel it. And that's thoughtful risk-taking because there's a level of uncertainty with it. There's a level of wastage that will come in failed research, and that's really important. And so if you look at our pipeline of drug candidates, we have more than we've had in at least in our recent history, because we're looking for more therapeutic areas, we're looking for more areas where we can have an impact. The second thing I would say is commercially, we're evolving a lot. Once you've got the molecule, once you've got the treatment and you have the ability to manufacture it at scale, and how do you distribute it? globally nowadays. Historically, it used to be market by market, and you approach it region by region. But now, you identify patients globally, and really the internet has deregulated access to information. And so you see it a lot in certain markets like the US, where information is widely available. We want to do it globally. We want to do it truly in a different way, at a different scale, at a different speed. And when you do that, you take more risks. You expose yourself more, you put more information out there, but we think it's the right thing. Because I think one of the trends that is really evolving is, I think, is patient empowerment. We all one day resort to the internet, to the famous search engine, and look for something. I've got 2 kids, one of them was sick recently, and I spent countless hours looking and trying to understand his condition, and so did he. And so this is, to me, it's a leveling playing field that we have now access to information, and we need to be more thoughtful in how we put our information out there with simple things, simple diagnostics, ensuring that patients are also reassured about your treatment. Some of the conditions can be quite dramatic, and so you want to make sure that you reassure them. And we're here to help. There was a doctor, a physician that I spoke to, a dermatologist that I spoke to recently, and I was asking her, how can we help? How can we, digital companies, and how can we help? And she said, you can give patients hope. And I thought that was such a powerful thing. Give them hope. Because through information, you can truly build new hope.
Can you give us an example? You talked about using digital as a propeller. You also talked about the challenge of how do you expand globally and having a different, a different global commercial and implementation model, go-to-market model. If you can give us an example in terms of how you're using digital in each of these areas as an accelerator.
So you mentioned accelerator. It's interesting because we built a digital accelerator at Sanofi in 2022. I've been privileged to lead that team, and it's a commercially focused accelerator at this stage. And our goal was to build internal capabilities, because we believe in our teams and our people. We believe that they live our purpose, they bleed our purpose. So there's nothing more powerful than having them build solutions for patients. And so we built an accelerator whose goal was exactly that, to help access to information, to help patients, to help with diagnostic, to help with those areas where there is friction still. Because it can take a long time between you being diagnosed with something, getting your first appointment with a doctor, with a medical professional, even a specialist, all the way to going to getting a prescription filled. It can take a long time. In certain rare diseases, it can take almost 10 years. In even more common diseases that we are very familiar with, like severe atopic dermatitis, it can take 9 months. That's a long time of suffering from the moment that you've identified that you have a condition that has a potential treatment. And so digital is helping with access to information, with brokering the conversation between the healthcare professional and the patient, educating the patient, educating the healthcare professional, and making sure that we go faster in that journey to getting to treatment. Healthcare professionals are inundated with new treatments every year, and their days are filled, truly filled. If you get the chance to go and be in the shadows of one, you'll be impressed how many patients they see in a day. And so for them to keep up with what's happening in terms of treatments, new potential areas of opportunities for the patients, they don't have that much bandwidth. So how do we cut through? That noise is something that we are very focused on. And then we partner with companies like BrightInsight. I think that has been a very unique partnership for us, because our goal is to help patients get access to the treatment faster. And so we built an app with BrightInsight, and BrightInsight has put the effort behind it. And the concept of this app is to say, when we recognize that a patient is entitled to the treatment, how do we get them to the treatment faster? And our KPI is truly, how do we get you from point A to point B as fast as possible so you can benefit from the treatment and you can truly see your life changing. You can track it and we can coach you.
Your partnership with BrightInsight has been for about a year now. What are some of the results, the outcomes so far?
So we're not live yet, so I cannot give you outcomes yet, but I can give you plenty of positivity that I'm feeling from it. First of all, working at speed with a company like BrightInsight, working with a startup mentality has been phenomenal. Because truly, I think the development cycle has been fast-tracked, and if we had done it internally fully, I think it would have taken much more time. So that's been a benefit. The platform that is available to us, so there's a lot of things that the BrightInsight platform makes available to us out of the box. That has been also a big accelerator for us. And then they understand the industry well. They understand patients, we understand patients, so we speak the same language. It's just not a common company that can build you an app. A lot of companies can build you an app. But a patient is different, it's a really different kind of user, if you want, if you can call them that. You have to really understand their motivations, you have to understand a number of things about them. It's not easy to live with a chronic disease. There are setbacks, there's plenty of things. And so they bring also their capability of, I think, humanity and understanding of the patient into how they develop their apps. So I think there is a competitive uniqueness about that. Working at speed, working with people that understand patients, working with people that have the same passion that we have at helping patients. I think those are the recipes.
You talked about patient engagement earlier, your son. What is the biggest market trend, business opportunity you see this year?
So I go back, I think it's the patient empowerment. I think it's the one thing that it's going at lightning speed. Understanding your disease, caring, for yourself, and being far more proactive in it. I'm sure that you yourself are quite active, but there's plenty of watches and devices that are starting to connect that whole ecosystem. And more people are hacking their bodies, if we can say that, looking at ways to improve their quality of life, how they feel, whether it be physically or mentally. And so all of that coming together, I think is really powerful, leveling the playing field. And it's a challenge for us as companies, because how do we make ourselves...
Because I want to know, how are you acting on this opportunity?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a real challenge for us, and we've got to become more that thoughtful, risk-taking approach. We've got to become more open about open the kimono kind of approach to things, explaining people where the treatments work, explaining more what you can expect as well. And I've been in the US now for a few days. I watch TV. There's plenty of TV ads for pharmaceutical companies. I don't find them very enticing, because you get the treatment and the side effects, so we need them. I think a deeper immersion experience with patients for them to understand what can you expect from a treatment and what can't you expect. And not all treatments work for everybody, and so you also have to be able to shift them to something else if it doesn't work quite rapidly.
Emmanuel, finally, on leadership. In life and business, there are codes, rules, norms, and how things are done.
Plenty.
Where have you been a code breaker, and how did you do it?
I don't know if I'm a code breaker. I'm a bit rebellious in some of my approaches to things. One thing that I've noticed in my career is I've been very fortunate. Really, I've been given the gift of more and more responsibilities, and so as my role evolved and I became more senior, my responsibility level became a bit higher. And one thing that bothered me in the past is that there's a bit of a distance that sometimes happens between leadership and the team. And so one thing that I tried to break the code on is, I don't think there is a distance. I think we need to be extremely flat in the way we have conversations. We need to make sure that we are equal in the point of views, and they don't weigh in based on your seniority, and that truly we can have a more transparent dialogue. So if you are to come and join my team, there's something that you'll experience called the honesty hours, where every month or every couple of months, depending on availability, we have a forum where you can ask any question. There is no limit to the question, and there's only a few outcomes that kind of have. One of them is I'm not legally allowed to answer it, because I am under an NDA or there's something that I'm not allowed to. One is because it's too personal, I don't want to answer it, so I will tell you I don't want to answer it, otherwise I will answer it. And it truly creates a dialogue where everybody feels safe about asking the hard questions. Often you go home and you wish you had that question, but you didn't feel like you were allowed to ask that question. So this is one of the things where I think I'd like to break the code is that you shouldn't go home with a question you haven't asked, because you feel like it's going to either put me in a difficult spot. You should ask that question and I should answer it.
Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.